Hello, everyone. Before we start today's recording, I am going to add a bit background information. This interview with Laszlo, one of my favorite people in the world. This interview was done in June 2023, and now is December 2024, the end of December when this episode is finally added and published. So what happened this 18, 18 months? Yeah. So when I was doing the recording during the June of 2023, I it was also time I start realize the residue, the long-term impact of the 2022 lockdown in Shanghai was still impacting my body somatically. And I started to experiencing flashback. It seems to me that cognitively, I knew that the lockdown has ended. For those who didn't know, I think if you search online, you will find a lot of history about that 3-month intense lockdown where I experienced starvation the first time ever in my life. It was horrifying. For a couple weeks, I was only eating 30% of my normal protein intakes, and my one day I find my hands just start to shake, just like anyone like the symptom someone has a Parkinson disease, right? It's a neurodegenerative disease, and I experienced that from starvation for a couple of weeks. Basically, my body was not getting enough nutrition to keep functioning at the healthy level. So I experienced that. It was it was crazy after entire year. The lockdown starting March and then ending June 2022. So in June 2023, I was experiencing all those symptoms. It's kind of a start emerging April, May, ish. And when I was preparing for my TEDx talk in Shanghai, I noticed I was extra tense, which is not who I am usually. And at the same time, I received an invitation to write a book chapter for a music therapy book, a music therapy clinical case studies. The case I was writing about actually happened during the 3 months of lockdown, where I was locked down, and I leaned on music, and I also thought, okay, what should I do to help myself and help others? So I started doing online group music therapy session. We're writing songs, try to channel our experience, and we did write songs, and I produced it and published it with people all around China, different cities, and so that was pressure. So I received a book writing invitation, and so in 2023, April, May, June, I started writing this chapter, and that's when I noticed all the symptoms. I was feeling nausea after writing 2, 3 sentences about the details. It was not about the whole lockdown, but about what we did, how I structured and facilitate the music therapy session. But my body was getting this intense trauma response. As a therapist, I immediately noticed. I'm like, wow. But it was so I did everything I could, try to, calm my body down, to ground myself, and anything I could do. And I went out, anything I could do to help my body to differentiate. Okay, now the trauma isn't coming back. Isn't happen now. It's 1 year ago. But um, anyone know how trauma, like really trauma works? Um, when it's unprocessed, it's stored in your body, right? So when I started to process it by writing this book chapter, basically my body started to process. It was a horrific situation, and um, yeah, I was feeling nausea. I felt like I was gonna vomit, run into the bathroom a couple times whenever I tried to write a couple sentences, tried to reflect on what I did, even was reflecting on my clinical work, but all the memory was all tangled together. So I tried a couple times, and every time was just I basically couldn't do anything the whole day because my body went into this panic. Right? It was like, is starvation going to happen again? Is this extreme lockdown? Like, basically, you are locked in your own apartment, nowhere to go, with the whole food supply chains was down. Um, yeah, I did everything I could to help my clients, everything I knew that could help us to feel grounded and support ourselves to process and dealing with trauma. But no, my body wasn't, there was no way was able to turn that book chapter on time. Uh, 3 months, 3 months trying, rest, grounding, going out, anything, take care of my body. But no, my body said no. So I decided to, it said I had to turn down that book chapter invitation to take care of myself. I think that's what's needed, what's necessary. And I believe that when I feel better, right, there will be more book writing opportunities in the future. I realized if I stay in the same city, the same room I was in, even though I moved the things around, got new furniture, all that, no, my body was still too traumatized to differentiate what's new and what's the past and what's present and what's future. So I took a break from all the indoor, like, including editing and stuff. So I couldn't really edit and process and publish this episode. I decided to go into the wilderness of South Africa, where no technology, I mean, basic living technology exists. No internet, no modern day smartphones like social media. Like, there's even no circular access, no internet access. So totally went in the wild of South Africa, basically how our ancestors lived. Um, and that helped me to heal my body. Finally, I felt the tension got released. Um, but soon after I came back, I had like a few conference to attend, workshop, and I found, I got COVID the first time ever. Um, and it was really bad. No respiratory symptoms at all. What I felt was a bit pain in my back. It's a nerve, on my back, and then I recognized my brain start to really slow down. Usually a really quick thinker. I feel I was really lucky to be able to recognize, okay, although there was no respiratory symptom, there was something. Yeah, it could be COVID, because I knew back in 2020, even though I had never had a COVID infection before, I read all the research that COVID is a neural inflammatory disease. I think the biggest danger is actually impacting our cognitive function, our brain function. Yeah, I think I was lucky that I still had the part of my brain which was in charge of the self-reflection, self-monitoring part. It was still functioning well, and I recognized that. And then, so that was August 2022. I noticed, okay, this this is COVID to test and that. And then that was like long time of recovery. And I did feel, um, I think, yeah, maybe this can take another episode to just talk about that. But long story short is the experience in 2022 and then the experience in 2023, all that really got me looking deeper into, in addition to, music therapy, nutritional psychiatry, how nutrition impacts our body, our neurological function, and food is one aspect and music is the other aspect. So basically these two events let me kind of start to thinking, food and music as nutritional components that are essential for healthy human existence, healthy human development, healthy human evolution. That will take other episode. I think I will talk more, definitely talk more. I've been teaching that a lot in my class, music therapy foundational training class. I started building the end of 2021. We can talk more details about that in another episode. Quickly, with nutrition, with extra attention, focus on my health and all that, and try to heal my body. And actually went to South Africa again in February 2024. And then coming back, adjusting nutrition, looked a lot into ketogenic diet, into metabolic therapy and all that. And I felt in the last couple months, I've been fully healed from the traumatic events in 2022 and the first time COVID infection. Well, my body was still healing from a traumatic event, just all these internal, external, physical, psychological stress adding together. But now I feel fully healed. So that's my journey in a nutshell. I'm trying to do it in a nutshell with so many ups and downs. And it was yesterday. I have the energy and mental clarity to edit and to watch this episode, this interview I did with Laszlo 18 months ago. And it's so fun. It's so much nutrition for our mind, for how we build a healthy relationship with music, how we use music as a, journal, a diary, a reflection of our relationship, a way to process our day, our emotions. So enjoy the episodes. And there were also several episodes done during the spring of 2023 that I have not published yet. These include a couple episodes with some of my other favorite professors. So stay in tuned, and I hope very good health and growth and love and support in your life. And enjoy the episode.
Obviously, Harvard students are very developed on the cerebral level. They know field of science on a very high level. And of course, learning and excelling in science, there is sort of a level where it's not that different from art. Like if you ask Albert Einstein, he probably feels that, at that level, that has a similar flow. But still, studying science and studying music is, I think, different. So you just have to basically teach them more of this instinctive learning part that you mentioned, Xingyu, how the frontal lobe turned up creating. They like their frontal lobe to be turned on.
遇见有趣的灵魂，活出真实的自己。大家好，欢迎来到谈心社，让我们一起谈心、谈情、谈音乐。Welcome to Generous Talk, an intercultural conversation on music, health, and lifestyle. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, welcome to Generous Talk. I'm Xingyu, and today I'm so happy and so thrilled to have my wonderful piano mentor I've known since 2014 at Laszlo Gardony. Woo!
Hello, everyone. Great to be here.
Wow, I suddenly got flushed by all those memories starting from 2014.
It's great to see you, Xingyu.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna talk a little about that because I remember it was my first week of my first semester at Berklee, and I was actually assigned by Berklee to another piano teacher automatically for freshmen, who were the teacher who auditioned me for ensemble placement. And I had no idea at the time, like about details about, the teachers at Berklee piano department. I was just new and second week landing in the US. Especially coming from a classical music background, it was a bit nervous to playing ensemble, playing all those, getting to know about all the rating system, improvisation with sight reading, Lishi. It was like still very new to me. And I walk in the room and I just feel, okay, everything's gonna be fine. Yes. And so I played what I knew, share with you. We had some talk and I just feel really, really connected with you. And I also feel like I could talk with you about what I want to learn. And at the end, you handed me your card. And I took it. Like immediately after that, I started searching online and listened to your music. And that music just hit me. Did not know what happened, but just like, wow, and I was like, I want to learn with Laszlo. And I ran to the piano department, and was like, I want to switch teacher because I just want to learn with Laszlo. At the beginning, it was like, oh, freshman, usually you don't choose your teacher, right? But I was like, no, I want to, like, tell me how. And they made it happen for me. Yeah, and I feel like I wouldn't be where am I now, who am I now without you. And I felt you had this incredible ability that, I had a lot of things in my mind I want to play, and I would play for you, not 100%. I was not able to express 100%, but somehow you could understand what I wanted to express and knew the gap, and knew the steps in between and show me the way. That was just so magical. And how did you do that?
Thank you for those wonderful words, Xingyu. And I really felt also, as first time as I heard you at that audition, that there is something special about you. And I think something I felt right away, how deep music is in you, and also how deeply compassionate you are, which is very important for an artist and educator to really want to give something beautiful to the world with our music and our every action, actually, as a human being. And that's why I gave you my card, because I said this lady has something in her that is truly special, and if I can, I will try to help. And it was really a good decision, because I really thought very soon after I started to work with you that you are blossoming into a wonderful musician and a compassionate healer. I mean, as a teacher, it's our job to really listen to the voice that's emerging in a student. We don't not just supposed to give you material that we like to hear back from our students. And, there are some teachers who do that, but I'm not one of those. I really would like to help you to become you. And it was a great journey to help you become you.
Yeah, wow. How do you hear that? It's like, it's so magical.
Thank you. It is very important to keep our instrument clean as a teacher. Now, instrument, what's the instrument? In this case, it's your humanity, right? Your art. That, it's nice that you want to make sure that you're a good pianist, but it is also very, very important to keep your instincts about another artist well tuned, and also well tuned into other people. And for that, everything you do in everyday life, every decision you make, it goes into it. So you have to make sure you don't become jaded, if you know what I mean. Some people just get a little bit negative sometimes, or just shut down and be selfish, or turn into somebody who is only self-involved but doesn't really care about others. And then if you have those qualities over the years, I've been teaching, of course, for many, many years. By then,
like
you just
87.
That's right. So more and more, if you cultivate those qualities, more and more you can tune into what's budding in a student and what is the flower that you have to help to grow in that person.
Wow. How it becomes so deep at the beginning.
Yeah, but I heard you. I remember there was a couple of semesters later, I went to see a performance which you put together, and there wasn't just musicians. There were dancers, and I think there was some people who were even painting spontaneous paintings as everybody else was performing. And it was so great to see that you were the center of that production. You brought out so much music and so much creative expression from the people whom you asked to perform with you there, that it was so clear to me that you are able to communicate your ideas, and also you can bring out the ideas of others as a leader. And you weren't an egotistical leader either. So, everybody got a chance to be themselves and enjoy their own creativity, but you were the facilitator. You were the one who made it happen. So there you go. So the question how you do it, just ask yourself. You knew it back then, even at a couple of semesters into Berklee, you already knew that.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I putting that show together. It was 2016, November 2016. It was very clear. And I always had this idea that it was exploring, music movement of non-traditional way of composition.
Right.
And also like giving a framework, but allow people to bring their whole self to the creation and also be able to connect with each other on a very deep and multidimensional level. Yeah. And I just feel like art should be like that.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
fulfilling to do that. And also, I find that was also a point where my role, former composer and music therapist, all connect together.
Exactly.
In that creation. Yeah. And I feel like I want to be able to do that anywhere else. It was Berklee, and also was at the time of the merger with Boston Conservatory. It was the beginning of the merger, and I was seeing like, oh my God, this is such an amazing opportunity, because I love dance growing up, had training in dance as well. And so I had an idea. I just went like right into the Boston Conservatory Contemporary Dance Theater department, connect with the director, the chair, Wanda there, and she was also like, oh yeah, let's do it, and help me to connect with people who are also, I guess, share the same purpose with arts and from all different cultures, and made that happen. Well, it was like 10 days we made that happen. It was just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly was. I still remember it. I go to many student concerts, and can't possibly remember all of them. This one I do, and it's been a couple of years.
I know, I'm surprised. Wow.
And you're doing great. As I see what you do on Facebook mostly, and I think it's wonderful what you are doing, and how active you are, and how determined, and how clear-minded about what your goals are. And those are very good goals, very, very positive goals.
Cleaning the humanity.
Yeah, well. Indeed.
So what are some specific things you do to help you stay in that that kind of state? Because we just have been through this 3 years of crazy pandemic, world crisis, and last time we talked about you actually be able to turn it into some spiritual growth, and turning inward. And I know your album somehow is also born out of that. Yeah, I would love to hear what do you do to keep yourself clean of humanity and stay centered.
Yeah, I mean, there are tragedies in life, and then you all see that the tragic part cannot be downplayed. It is there and it's happening, but every tragedy also brings up the question, what can you learn in this situation, which is a new situation, and how can you grow, and how can you be more what you want to be? So a lot of us actually, I noticed in the music scene, turn to self examination and self-reflection. So a lot of us have grown musically. Interesting was to see, in the first couple of years when we were so isolated, and first couple of months, I should say, when we were isolated, what people decide to do with their time alone, and some people became master chefs, they kept cooking things they never cooked up before. Others started painting. For me, I mean, I'm fortunate in a sense that, I'm a pianist, and also I've been quite extensively working as a solo pianist beside my trio and sextet work and sideman work. So there was the piano. So I kept creating on my instrument during this time of isolation, and I could go deep into my intuitive ideas. And actually, I think I've grown a lot during this time musically, and that keeps you, in the positive, keeps you want to wake up every morning and do your work. Now, teaching is something else. It's kind of hard to do it on Zoom, which we actually can also sort of see as a positive during this time, that we learned remote communication. Not the greatest for music teaching, but it is a good challenge because, again, you have to tune into your students' personality even more. That's right. So to be able to communicate, again, you learn as a teacher too, how you can make this work. And in general, I think life has changed maybe in many sense for the better by now being introduced to this remote communication and remote work together. So those were, first it seemed like a very difficult challenge to switch to this. But then, again, you learn from it and you start to enjoy many aspects of it. And then you say, well, we turned this into a positive, for at least in that sense. And of course, you always feel terrible for the victims and the people who suffered. But as long as we are fortunate enough to stay out of that kind of tragedy, we can turn it into a positive, especially when you use it for self-reflection, whether you are an artist or not.
Yeah. Right. The part when you talk about, we actually need to learn to be more in tune.
Yes.
In the online environment, that is also something I experienced in music therapy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's like freaking out, like, oh, there's no way we can do music therapy online. You have to be in the same space. There's vibration. You have touch. There's no way.
It's funny because, I teach now also at Harvard. I teach a piano class there besides Berklee. And what I learned during these remote semesters, I can use because I learned how to create very effective videos. Like I set up an overhead camera setup, which I will show you guys later. And so I could actually expedite their learning experience, the Harvard students, because Harvard, of course, is not typically I shouldn't even say not typically a music school, but in the same time, people are very talented, many of them. Dave, who is a great saxophone player, and I recorded with him and played with Wynton Marsalis. He was an electrical engineering student at Harvard, so he actually introduced me to the Harvard music community. Anyway, what I wanted to say is that by being able to make these effective new technology videos very quickly helped these students a lot to prepare for their concert. They just had it a couple of days ago. And I was so happy to hear that the little subtleties that I always find so important in playing, the little embellishments, which we worked on with you. I remember on Hallelujah, I Love Her So, Ray Charles. Yeah?
Yeah.
See, those little things, they could pick it up from the video because they could see my hand, and they could hear it. Well, with before Zoom, I wasn't thinking of that I make a close camera overhead video for somebody, and I didn't think it will help so much either, but it did. So
Hey, so it like push us to see the area that we otherwise would not experience or see at all. Yeah, yeah. There are so many new like apps just came out that become very, very helpful music therapy. And even now I work with people in person and online, and I love that like the both side. Um
yeah, and your kindness, your personality, your caring comes across very well over, the satellites and whatever else people exist here. It doesn't
post
diminish.
here.
It's there.
Yeah, I wonder, and one thing I was still curious,
Hmm.
I wonder if anyone has done some research as to how our brains start to pick up different like signals differently because of this different layer.
Right.
Yeah, maybe when someone need to mute theirs.
Yeah, I was trying to check. Oh, that's you. Yeah,
Yeah, the iPhone.
听着听着就会把指针
maybe I can do that here.
You can, yes,
Yeah.
awesome, great, thank you.
Oops.
Don't mute me.
Yeah, I almost did that. Then I really have to feel your thoughts after that.
Channel it. Yeah. What is it like now, like teaching both at Berkeley and Harvard?
Well, it's very interesting because what I really like about the Berkeley teaching, and I've been there for, 35 years, that, I started pretty much as I was a student still there. And what I really, really like there, the commitment, that Berkeley students know that they want to do music in one way, one form or another. And they are immersed in it. That's their study. That's their life path. They are completely committed to it. With Harvard students, the first impression when I started teaching there, and that was about 4 semesters ago, I felt that they think it's just a nice adventure for them, sort of an auditional adventure in life. So first you have to teach them the sincerity and the depth of our commitment as musicians. And then once they are very smart, obviously, and they are very quickly picking things up and work very hard. But they have to understand that. And once they did, they sort of become musicians, maybe not on the highest level as the Berklee talent has, but they have the musician mind. So that was an interesting additional step for me to first introduce the musician mind to people who think that this is just going to be a little adventure in another discipline, And once they are there, I wouldn't say there is much difference in the way I would teach them and also the results I get. Some of them became very, very good player in a couple of semesters. Yeah.
What is that step you need to help them to develop that music mind? I feel there might be some connection between the work I'm doing, because I'm advocating a lot for people like, okay, what actually music can do, can help, can benefit you.
Yeah. I think you're doing a lot of that probably as a music therapist, because with, for example, a student like a Harvard student who may study, as I said, electrical engineering.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to them to see a little bit of the psychology of creativity. So after all, so many decades of teaching, you understand a lot of things that you can explain about why certain choices the musicians or the creative artists make. Why is that certain choices in harmony, in form, structure, scales, whatever, improvisational language make sense to them and make sense to the audience. Now they start to see, so this is another language when there are effective ways to talk and the not so effective ways to talk. So that is an entryway. And then the other step is to show them how sincere we are about this and how magical places it takes us. Now, the magical place is to take them is the best way to play together. As you know, we used to play together too, right? So improvise together, making music up together, not just the way how very young people learn classical music, which is getting a piece of paper with dots on it, and then people explain that dot means a G, that dot means an A. But actually being in a room and use your ear, use your communication skills, and make something up. After all that many years of playing professionally, I play with lots of great world famous people for so many decades. And I always improvised all my life since I was 4 years old, 3 years old, maybe even. So for me, that's a natural place to be, to work together with people very closely listening to each other. You can communicate this. And if the student all of a sudden finds joy in listening, then it's a two-way street. And then it's working really well to communicate the joy of creation and the sincerity and the dedication of it. And then they see your life, your career. It's kind of important, for them to see that you are not just a teacher who likes to go into a classroom and then likes to go home and have dinner. You live music 24/7 every day, day and night, and you create it for yourself as an artist. You are willing to tour, you are willing to record. Actually, you want to record, you want to communicate your art, and you have success with it. So those are inspirational things for them as well, to see that path. And then say, hey, this is a nice way to commit yourself to something. It really brought that magic into your life when you try to play together with somebody who can guide you there. And there is a way to understand a lot about music, whether you are a musician, even if you are not a musician to begin with, or not a musician-minded person, then you can see some psychological truths there, how people react to music, or why they would choose to create some sort of a music. So those are maybe the three elements that really help.
Create the music mind.
Yeah.
And bring that magic.
Yeah. Music mind, bring the magic, and then see the commitment.
Wow. Yeah. That sounds really interesting. I can definitely see the different parallel process that I'm doing here on like different levels. Like the TEDx talk I just gave a couple weeks ago, I actually had the audience to hum a chord with me, and then I started singing on top of that, and then I showed them, I actually asked them to do it at the beginning and then towards the end, and I asked what just happened. There's 100 brains here released tons of oxytocin all at once. And everyone was like laughed. And that's love hormone, right? That's how we feel connected.
Yeah. And sometimes I talk to my friends about this, how now we have a lot of artificial intelligence talk. Computers are just growing in importance and abilities. But we can always be sure of our humanity on one subject for sure, is that somehow good art, over centuries and over generations can connect so many people, right? So if it would be all separate machines, a Chopin piece couldn't resonate throughout the centuries with practically people of all ages from all geographic locations. They haven't invented that machine that creates some sort of a product that all the other machines are really excited about. So that's really an amazing proof of our common spirit, as humans.
Interesting. One machine created and the other machine feel excited.
Yeah. My computer would like to flash on the screen. Oh, you got to check out what this other computer created. That didn't happen yet. Hopefully never does.
Wow. Yeah, I am having a lot of also on social media having conversation about all those AI, and because a lot of people are afraid of, for example, painting, right? There's AI like generating painting or like writing, and so some people feel a bit anxious about.
I'm a little anxious too. Yeah, because if people start to take this as an option, somebody says, "Oh, I need a painting for," even if it's as simple as hotels buy paintings for the wall just so it doesn't look so plain. And most people don't look at those paintings. You just know, okay, there is something on the wall. Cool, let's have a coffee and then go to wherever I need to go. But we can't diminish people's ability to discern which one is real art and which one was created by a computer, because then our little antennas that pick up on this common spirit of humankind will be desensitized, Then we say, well, after a while, maybe people wouldn't be able to distinguish between a musical piece that a computer churned out or somebody put their heart and soul into composing it. So I wouldn't want to have those musical pieces or paintings float out there unless they identify that this was an experiment with a computer. Well, I'm fine. Okay, let's have fun with it, like a video game,
Yeah.
But not like, this can replace art. It can never replace art.
So the concern is really not to make people desensitize.
That's the concern. That's the only concern. Yeah, if people start not to hear the difference, like in some music now, they are fix everything. When you hear a vocalist, auto-tune. When you hear this kind of weird sounding coming out of a human being because they auto-tune somebody's singing voice, I says that's desensitizing too, Now all of a sudden people, they say that's just as much okay to me than listening to a beautiful singer singing for real. And that's not a good path to take.
Right. Especially I think like pop music, like on the radio and
it's pop.
The most like auto-tuned, and then when people hear someone has a bit like those sound that's actually natural human sound, they will feel like that doesn't sound like the song on the radio. They maybe users sing better to radios. I definitely see that happen.
Right.
Yeah. What do you see the kind of the counteraction to that? Is like more kidding.
You won't believe it, but it's the same what we talked about before about teaching. As long as you play together, if people enjoy playing together, even if if you play together when you are playing with your kid or playing within the family, and it doesn't matter the quality actually of the skill level of a person, people experience that joy of playing together, and they open up their ears because they want to hear the other person they are playing with really well, like musically speaking. Then they're gonna notice fakery, when something is not really happening in real within real human connection and communication. Yeah. I think that's what it is. It's funny because Béla Bartók, one of my heroes, of course, great Hungarian composer, he said it once that he was even afraid of music getting on the radio. And that's kind of funny to hear now when we don't even listen to radio. But it was really a step in the direction when people got canned music that just comes to them without having to create it or go to a concert.
Yeah.
And that was his worry, that people will listen to music kind of half-heartedly after that sometimes. You may be in the kitchen and the Bartók concerto is coming and then you're cooking in the meantime. And he already didn't like that because he liked that people play together in the house or to go to concerts. Now, we don't even understand this thinking anymore because technology is so far advanced by now, in terms of music getting to you. But the basic idea, I can see that it's wonderful to keep some sort of actual creating of music in your life. Jam with your friends. Don't worry about the quality of the music. Definitely go to concerts. Try to get to know musicians a little better if you can. To go to the real thing, with a real creation or real listening of music as many times as you can.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're just gonna be like playing a video game all the time, like not in the real life. Yeah, I definitely can see that with all the social media, like TikTok, those impact on people. I'm curious about the album you created in the pandemic. It's called Close Connection. So how did that album evolve, and I also read something interesting. There's a review about your album. I wonder what's your comment on the review. It talked about your album as 12 new compositions that combine Hungarian folk music and progressive rock and squeeze them through a contemporary jazz filter.
The right thing about music is, as they say, is dancing about architecture. So they try the best they can to describe what you do, and it's not far from the truth. I don't feel squeezing, but other than that, it's true. Yeah, so that comes back to the self-reflection. This time gave me a chance, as to many other musicians around me, to reflect on our backgrounds and our deeply held love of various style of music and the various type of influences. Actually, on my website, lgjazz.com, that's what it is, my initials and the word jazz, lgjazz.com, there is a video channel, and you can see the videos of this music, what you mentioned, Close Connection, played live, and also a video where I explain a little bit about the process, how we came to this, how I came to this music, and how we came to the recording with my trio, with Yoran Israel and John Lockwood. But I think the most important thing is that you always connect to the things that you heard first. I always tell my performance major students that if you ever wonder who is in the audience, then think about the concerts you went to that really impressed you enough that you wanted to become a musician yourself. So when you really felt that it was so awesome that I want to do this, and you can be in this position now. You can be on stage and inspire someone to become a musician. So take this as a gift and as a privilege. Not like, oh my God, I hope the critics and the judgmental ones gonna like it, and that's all your job. No, that's not all your job. Not even close. Yeah. What were you saying?
That's a mindset. Where do you focus on? Is the negative criticism, worry, or more like looking forward, focusing on the impact, right?
Right. So, it is actually special, happening a lot in a smaller scene like jazz, When somebody is in rock and roll and they play for a stadium of 150,000 people and they have an opening act, they all go up there. We are already great, But we always convert people to liking our music because it's a more complex music, and therefore we always gonna find some people who came but they still don't get it, and then it's your job to remain calm and do your job. Yes. As I was mentioning, I was just preparing for you guys just a little demonstration of a couple of things. How to teach online, how you can give this overhead camera idea a good use in teaching, and also how to create music in the moment. As you said before, we did play together, you and I improvise together, and those were wonderful times, and I do it with a lot of my students, and it always helps them to get closer to their rhythmical language, and also their ear opens up a lot more. And maybe if I can show one of those little things, I was kind of doing this completely improvisatory, but it ended up a mixture of Bartok and blues. So in a way, the answer to your question about the influences, how they squeeze together into this jazz format. So I'm going to try to share the screen. I haven't tried it before when there are so many people, but I think I can do it. So tell me if you guys can hear it. Yeah, I think I'm back.
Yes.
So, it's something where you just sit down and express what you feel and then go with that. And as you were mentioning the album, maybe I can find something from there, from our live concert. I can do that too.
You were saying you sit down, you had all those self-reflection, and then those improvisation, and it came out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, as you can see, this kind of things have their own groove, if you will, their own feel to it. And that's really a part of, oops, I'm sorry. That's what happens on YouTube, that you have all kinds of advertisement before your video. They just find you and then they put it there. So everybody, please bear with me until I get rid of the mosquito advertisement. All right.
Then how do you capture those ideas and turn into what you want to record in the studio?
Well, as with everything, it is very important that you find a good balance between what you want to put on paper and what you want to make sure that happens in the moment. So we all have to create a very strong structure as a composer that's inspiring for the audience and for the musicians you play with. And then also you have to leave space for the creative moments to happen in the moment. So it is very different from writing this than writing classical music, because there every note is written on the paper. In its end result is not as different, because classical music tries to create these spontaneous moments by writing down things that might happen spontaneously. Plus, a lot of great composers were improvisers, like Bach, Chopin. So they just wrote down something that they improvised. And when you go to the studio, then the added excitement is the fact that you really going to commemorate this by recording it. So you focus real hard and you listen to each other in a very ideal situation, good instruments, good headphones and everything. And you communicate very closely. And what usually happens once you become a professional is first take is the take. You don't take 15 takes. First take is the one. That's when you said it. So that's what happens, and then you just basically play a concert in the studio. And that's the best expression of your music. So let me try to do. I haven't tried this before our meeting up here, but let me try to share this video with you, which is the music from the album. It's called Cedar Tree Dance. And if you see behind me painting, I will show you that later, that painting sort of what gave its title. But I want to make sure the sound is coming out. Do you hear something?
You need to unmute the
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right, because I turned down the mosquito ad, right? Okay, so here it is.
Thank you very much.
Basically, what I wanted to say is that, this is one of the good examples of these various ways of creating music. First of all, it started out as an improvisation at a concert. So I was playing a solo concert at an art center. And then at one point I said, okay, it's time to make something up on the spot. So I did. And,
so during the concert, you were like, okay, let me make something.
yes. And I announced it in advance that, okay, I played enough tunes now. Let's make something up. And so I did. And then later I listened back to it and I said, is this something that I could maybe write a tune out of? Often I don't use an improvisation at all or use it as is exactly. And maybe I did a couple of albums like this when I recorded in the studio.
I remember.
Improvised pieces. Yeah,
I remember the one you gave me about life journey.
Yeah, the clarity is one of them. And the other one was just play, and then I was changing standards. I have all 14 albums altogether, and I think 4 of them are a solo piano was, and 2 of them are full improvised out of that. So this was one of those improvisations. And then I realized this one is great for writing a tune out of. So I wrote a tune for the trio. Then that's when I realized that a lot of these influences that later the critics discovered in my music is there, because at the beginning of it has this somewhat Central European influence, folk influence in its dance rhythms, like Bartok used to utilize a lot in his music. Then in the middle, it turns into this meditative kind of piece on one chord, basically, where you just immerse yourself into this beautiful vibe. Then there is some rock moments there, where simple triads, very simple chords in a rhythmical fashion are placed one after one another. For musicians, it's easy to see that, it's just 1-4-5 kind of chords that a lot of rock music uses. So that's there. And then there's a little New Orleans beat there in the bass there. And the whole thing is just happened naturally in that improvised piece to begin with. And the only thing I had to do with the improvised piece to make it a tune to cut away certain things. So I didn't need to add to it. I need to cut away a couple of things. I said, maybe I don't need this one. We leave this open to improvisation every time when we play the tune. And that's it. So improvisation started it. All these influences seem to be there. Bartok, Central European folk music, rock, and even, of course, the blues and New Orleans element in the music. And
it all came together.
It all came together very, very naturally. And that was one of the first live concerts I gave after the hiatus went for over a year. We couldn't play live. This is one of the first ones. And I just had to improvise for those nice people who came, reward them with something and nobody ever heard before, not even me.
Wow, nice. And how's that a reflection of your own musical journey?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Very good question. I mean, the
Hungary to like Berklee and
right.
Yeah,
it's a very important one. In Hungary, the musical education and the musical culture is very, very, very strong in classical music. But there is a small and very active jazz scene as well. And of course, everywhere there are rock bands. But I heard a lot of classical music coming from the radio since I was, an infant. And then, of course, rock and roll started up being on the radio, and I loved it, of course. I loved Pink Floyd. I loved Deep Purple, King Crimson, a lot of the progressive rock bands. And when I started playing on the piano, I found myself improvising mostly blues-based music or composed some classical music. And so these two things kind of came together and kept with me over the years. I would play 3 hours at least every day, would come from school, and it became sort of a diary, like when some people write in a book what happened to them during
3 hours of diary.
3 hours of diary writing every day. Imagine the neighbors, how happy they were writing my diary on a piano. But I kept at it, and I think that's connected me to the improvisation, naturally to the improvisational aspect of music, that I improvised every day for 3 hours. Of course, I took classical lessons, went to the conservatory, where I studied classical, and Béla Bartók Conservatory, classical and jazz as well. And
hours of daily.
yeah. It was a very natural thing. And as you know, music is therapy. Whether we call it therapy or not, it is therapy. So whatever happened during the day, just like diary writing, you reflect on it, you kind of understand better what happened, and you make the best of it. So that's what happened. And that all just led me to basically the very small jazz scene in Europe, which eventually, in Central Europe, which led me to the larger jazz scene in entire Europe. I was touring in my early 20s and played major festivals everywhere in Europe. Then I got a full scholarship at Berklee, came here, met amazing musicians, and got to play with them and record with them, like Dave Holland, Bob Moses, Miroslav Vitus, Dave Liebman, and Randy Brecker, Michael Brecker, John Scofield. And what all that does to you is solidifies your direction, because everything I'd done with these people and alone, I always remained committed to just be myself, So I never said, okay, maybe expand, being me and copy someone else. That just never occurred to me, no matter whom I played with. And everybody appreciated that, whoever played with me. So nobody ever said that maybe you should, copy somebody. It's not a thing in jazz.
Yes, it's a common in classical music.
Yes, you have to be a great interpreter. It's true. Keith Jarrett was talking about this, that when he recorded the Bach Well-Tempered Clavier, Keith Jarrett, the great pianist, and that he just wanted to take things away from the performance, it's what some interpreters, classical interpreters, would put in there, because he's an improviser himself, so he can sympathize with Bach, what Bach really meant to do, and doesn't want to shine through embellishments or dramatic interpretations. He just wants the music to shine on its own as Bach wrote it. And that's what the nicest thing about improvisation, that you're playing your most honest notes you could possibly play.
It's interesting neuroscience research I read recently is that they find when musician improvise, actually your prefrontal lobe turned off, which is the part like you are super self-conscious or like critical. That part turned off, like when you improvise. So
but that's a funny thing to say.
Yeah, you take out the filter, right? You just
but it might give some impression to some people when they don't know how it's done, that it's just all over the place. It's actually a greater wisdom. Exactly, the greater wisdom comes in. The greater wisdom from the universe, from everywhere. You become a vessel.
Yes, you have to remove yourself. I guess that's what we also said. You are not egocentric at the moment, and then to allow the authentic notes come through. That's what they notice in people in flow state. So
that's right.
Fascinating. Like that's our experience, and also I can see like in the neuroscience are catching up.
And a lot of logical people who try to live life only logically, like logically plan everything, they don't want to give that up, because they don't necessarily understand that there is this greater wisdom that they have actually, if they just allow it that greater wisdom to operate in them, right? So as you said, you turn off certain parts of your brain, but other getting more featured, and other once elements of your psyche and your spirit, then you will learn even from yourself things that you didn't know you knew. And of course, you communicate it through music.
Then that probably naturally falls into our last question is then, what do you see the future of music education? What, you've been teaching over 30, almost like 40 years, and being at Berklee is I see the college and institution just keep growing and evolving, always leading at the forefront of everything. So what do you see the trend and then leading to the future of music and music education?
Because us musicians, we always try to hear the sounds that really express our humanity and the wisdom that is around us the most effective way. And I do hear now, again, young people are able to reach for the next level. And the next level is always refining of the sound we produce. Like, for example, Jacob Collier, who is, of course, very famous. I just heard a video of him a couple of weeks ago. He is spontaneously improvised the piece actually improvised the version of How Deep Is Your Love by the Bee Gees. And if you know the Bee Gees or not, the Bee Gees was basically a good band who turned into a disco band, still very good. But I mean, this version, especially towards the end, when he makes the audience sing with him, it created sounds that are, again, the next level of hearing the subtleties of the sound that surrounds us in the world. And that's what we communicate. There is another example of this, a great Hungarian composer, György Ligeti, who was a disciple of Bartók and other contemporary ones. He said a very interesting thing. He created music, for example, you can hear in the movie, it's 2001 Space Odyssey, which is a great movie anyway. And he said he heard these sounds, but he had a trouble communicating it to the orchestra because it was so different. And it took him the longest time to figure out how to communicate the sound to the orchestra so they can produce it. So I am hearing that's the future of music, where we hear more and more subtle elements of the sound that surround us. And even the history of music is like this, starting with the Gregorian chants or even simple folk songs before that. And keep learning how to express deeper and deeper subtleties of the sound around us. Certainly, I don't see the future as some machine is creating it, so we don't have to, because we want to create it.
I feel like the machine, they never see it can take away busy work, repetitive thing, and then leave us more time and attention to those more subtle ones that humanity can reach further.
Yeah. So exactly, as long as everybody can distinguish between the human quest for that perfect sound and something that just kind of makes some noise around, and that's perfectly fine. But I think that's the future, because I really hear there are always new inventions in harmony, from young people, where you use these instruments that we have in a more creative and subtle ways and create sounds that people haven't thought of before. And what I like about it is that there was a period in classical music when I would say dissonance was considered an option, like 12-tone music and a lot of the contemporary 20th century classical music. But now what I'm hearing is new consonances. So things that sound pleasant, but different from what we used to call consonant or pleasant sounds, And that's a fascinating step in music when you hear those things, or create them.
With Jacob talking about playing in a key that doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. Like the end of that video, there is something when the people create a sound that expresses everything, but you couldn't put a name on it. This is, I think it's a major sound. No, none of that. It's just there. So I think he's doing it.
We'll catch up later.
Yeah, exactly. Theory will catch up later. They're very good. Very well put.
Well, love it. Oh, thank you. This is such an awesome note to end here. And I feel like I hear the residue, like. And thank you so much for being here, and everyone, being here.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming and listening to us and asking questions and letting me know your thoughts. That was wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we'll end today, but it will never end. We'll continue the conversation, and we'll see what's happening in Berklee, and maybe we'll come to Boston. We'll see.
That's good.
Yeah.
You do soon. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, play more music.感谢你的收听，我们下一期不见不散。